My first question to you today is, please raise your hand if you think animal abuse is wrong. Yay, we all agree animal abuse is wrong. I would say most sane people believe that abusing, tormenting, torturing animals is wrong, right? As you might already know, today I'm going to be making a case for veganism. But before I do that, I would like to ask all of you to please just, in your mind, think about what you think you know about veganism, what the word means, who vegans are, what we do, what we believe, whatever comes to mind when you hear this word. And once you have that, I'd like you all to imagine burning all of that information, because more than likely it has nothing to do with what I'm going to be talking to you today about. That guy right there, he's not a vegan. Vegans don't eat grass. In fact, veganism is not a diet at all. Veganism is not about protecting the environment, not even about loving animals. Veganism is not about being healthy, even though that might be a benefit of it. We're going to be working with a very specific definition of veganism today. But before I address that, just a couple of other things about myself. I'm not here to sell anything to you, okay? I'm not getting any money for being here. I wasn't born a vegan either. Yes, cheese tastes good. We can all agree, cheese tastes good. Let's just get that out of the way. I'm not here to tell you that you're a terrible person. I don't believe that any of you are terrible people, but at the same time, I'm not here to be nice to you and tell you that there is nothing wrong with the way you think, the way you live. I will say things that will make you feel challenged, provoked, perhaps uncomfortable. So I would like to ask all of you to please try to keep an open mind, okay? And be open to questioning some of the things you have been told ever since you were a small child. So the jokes. I don't like to be this serious all the time, so I thought let's just start by lightening the mood a bit. So let's see the first joke. You don't find that funny? Okay, well, I'm sure the next one is going to work. Let's see it. They don't find that funny either. Crazy what this world is coming to, right? Okay, well, last attempt. I'm sure this is going to work. Okay, I give up. You guys really don't seem to have a sense of humor today. Now, clearly I don't find these propositions funny either, but about 200 years ago, this was considered hilarious by many, many people. This was seen as insane and ridiculous. In fact, if you're a woman, if you were born about 100 years ago, maybe a bit more, chances are you would not be allowed to study at this university, simply because of your gender. And when the first gay rights student organization was formed at a university, less than 100 years ago actually, most people genuinely, seriously believed that it was an April Fool's hoax, a joke. So all of these ideas that I listed here were considered absolutely ridiculous and hilarious by many, many people not that long ago. So I'm sorry, I missed one. Non-human animals should not be enslaved, treated as property, and oppressed by humans. Now, this is the one that you're currently allowed to laugh at and say, how dare you compare, without being looked at as a terrible person, right? But please remember that this was the case with most other basic ethical principles that you consider to be normal and accept today. So what do I mean by this? Non-human animals, that is, all animals other than humans, have been oppressed and exploited, degraded to such an extent that right now even the idea to compare them to humans in any way is often seen as crazy and even offensive. Even much of our language is actually constructed around degrading each other into other animals, as if that would take away from our value. The word of the day, veganism. What is veganism? The definition that we're going to be working with today is this. Veganism is the idea that sentient earthlings should not be commodified and used as resources. Does anyone know what sentient means? What is sentient? Nobody? That's okay. So the official Google definition of sentient is to be able to perceive or feel things. I feel like a more accurate definition would be a sentient being. A sentient individual is someone who has a subjective experience of the world. Someone who's able to internally experience what's going on around them. So that would include most animals like humans, monkeys, dogs, cows, chickens, pigs, rabbits, etc., we are all able to feel, we are all able to experience fear, joy, suffering, we all share the preference to be happy. But to actually understand this crazy and ridiculous idea of veganism, first we must go back to human rights. Human rights is actually the core of veganism. Veganism is a logical extension of human rights. And we must actually question why we believe in human rights. Why we think that women and men, black and white people, gay and straight people are equal. Why do we all deserve the same basic protection from violence and oppression? Have you ever actually thought deeply about it, or have you just taken these things for granted? We certainly might be different in some ways, right? Now, I propose to you today that the reason we are equal is actually not because we're all human. I believe that the reason we are equal is because while we might be different in some way, none of those differences are morally relevant, and that there is no ethically significant trait that's lacking from the once oppressed groups that could justify oppressing them while not oppressing others. To clarify this with a couple of examples, women and men might be different in some ways, but there's no magical special trait that a man possesses that a woman lacks that could justify respecting one while treating the other as property like they used to. There is no magical special trait that a white person possesses that a black person lacks, for example, that could justify protecting one while enslaving the other. To go a bit further, if I were to tell you that I'm going to take a human and I'm going to forcefully, artificially impregnate them, then once they have their baby, I'm going to steal their baby and I'm going to kill their baby. Then I'm going to use the human for my benefit. Then once the human does not bring me benefit, what am I to do? I'm going to chop their head off, obviously. What would you tell me? Why should I not do that? Would you look at the person's skin color? Would you look at their gender or their sexuality? Would you look at how intelligent they are or whether or not they can solve a math problem? Would you say, don't chop their head off because they know what 5 times 8 is? Or would you say, don't exploit them because they feel? They are able to feel pain. They are innocent. They don't want to be violated, murdered, and exploited. More than likely, most people would say the latter, right? So in other words, you would say, don't exploit them because they're sentient. And they have a subjective experience. They have their own perspective, which I must consider not just my own selfish one. In all ways that matter, we are absolutely comparable to other animals as we all share these traits. A word I'd like to introduce to you today, or perhaps you already know it. Does anyone know what anthropocentrism is? Ever heard of this word? No? Okay, so anthropocentrism is basically human centrism. Often the time period that we're living in right now on this planet is often called the Anthropocene. So a time period which is defined by human action, human intervention, where the dominant belief is that humans are the only generators of value. So this idea of anthropocentrism, or we can call it human supremacy, we can also call it speciesism, if you will, has led to all other sentient earthlings suffering a seemingly eternal treblinka. The largest scale form of this exploitation right now is happening in our food system. It's happening in a lot of other places as well, which I will go into, but the most egregious, largest form is happening in our food system. So I'm going to show you a short video about animal agriculture practices. What you're about to see are standard and legal practices in this country as well, so no exceptional cruelty here. The video is, however, likely to make you feel uncomfortable, but I'm asking you to please watch it. Please stay and watch it, because I think that ignorance towards injustice is actually the main cause of injustice. So please watch the video, and then I will continue.
Like humans, cows are strongly maternal beings who form close bonds with their young and must give birth in order to produce milk. On dairy farms, they are forcefully impregnated every year to keep this milk flowing, usually by artificial insemination rather than natural mating, which requires workers to insert their arm into the cow's anus to hold her cervix in place while injecting her with semen collected from a bull. The calves are taken away mere hours after being born so that the milk intended for them can be collected and sold for human consumption. Over the days following separation, the mothers bellow day and night, searching for their calves. They're known to grieve for days or even weeks. The lactating cows are herded into the milk shed and hooked up to industrial milking machines. In natural conditions, they can live up to 20 years. On dairy farms, they last only 4 to 8 years. Some, known as downers, succumbing to the pressure of continuous impregnation and producing up to 10 times more milk than they naturally would. The rest sent to slaughter when their milk production begins to slow down or they become too injured to continue.
Most pigs bred for food begin life in a farrowing crate, a small pen with a central cage, designed to allow the piglets to feed from their mother, the sow, while preventing her from moving around. Most pig farms utilize artificial insemination rather than natural mating, as it allows them to impregnate up to 30 to 40 female pigs from a single boar. Boars are still physically used to excite the females prior to insemination, but are prevented from actually mating. The frequency of stillborn or mummified piglets generally increases with each litter as the sows' bodies become less capable of handling the large litter sizes encouraged by the industry. Included in the death toll are the runts of the litter, who are considered economically unviable and killed by staff. Most are destined for slaughter around 5 months later. In the morning, they are forcefully herded to the kill floor, often with an electric prodder. Used at all major pig abattoirs and touted as the most humane and efficient option is the carbon dioxide gas chamber.
Unable to ever produce eggs themselves, and a completely different breed to the chickens used for meat, the male chicks are considered waste products, as are any females perceived to be deformed or weak. They are sorted onto a separate conveyor belt from the healthy females in their first day of life, and sent into an industrial blender called a macerator. Smaller hatcheries may use carbon dioxide gas or simply suffocate the chicks in plastic bags. Free-range hens are sent to slaughter from just 18 months of age, far short of their 10-year natural lifespan. At the slaughterhouse, the hens are shackled upside down on a moving line. They are lowered into a bath of electrified water to stun them prior to their throats being cut by an automated blade. But if they lift their heads, they can miss the stun bath, facing the blade fully conscious, and ultimately drowning in scalding water further down the process.
Right. So, as you could see, cows, just like every other mammal, just like humans, produce milk only when they get pregnant, and they produce it for one reason, which is for their babies, which is why their babies are kidnapped from them. As you could see, chickens are selectively bred to produce as many eggs as possible, and when they don't meet the business's demands, they get slaughtered, just like all the male baby chicks who are unable to produce eggs because of their sex. The animals that you consume have no benefit at all from being born onto this planet. They are artificially and selectively bred for one reason only, which is to maximize profit. So when feeling, sensitive, sentient beings are viewed as mere commodities, when they are viewed as objects, as a means to an end, when they are not viewed as some ones but some things to profit off of, they will always be abused and they will never be respected. I'm sure you've heard of humane slaughter, ethical slaughter. Does not exist, it's an oxymoron. I wonder, do you think humane human slaughter exists? How do you ethically and respectfully, with compassion, with benevolence, since that's what humane means, slit someone's throat who does not want you to slit their throat? No ethically significant differences from this perspective. Which is how we arrive at the problem, or as I like to call it, the problem. So we all agree, animal abuse is wrong. As you listen to what I presented to you so far, you might have found yourself understanding, perhaps even agreeing with some of the things I said. In fact, most of this needed no explanation to you, not that long ago, since as children, most of us do respect other animals. We have no instincts to hurt them. If you show a young child a pig, they will not have even the slightest desire to chop them into pieces, to stab them, to watch them bleed out, to murder them. They will more than likely want to pet the animal, befriend them, right? Human supremacy is taught and it's not innate. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is that if you accept what I presented to you so far and will keep presenting, then you will have to change. We all hate to change. It's scary, it's uncomfortable. Some people might look at us strangely if we refuse to engage in their social norms. We hate to change, but what do? When we believe something, yet with our actions we contradict that belief. Because what do we believe? Animal abuse is wrong. What do? Well, perhaps we go to the circus and pay for horses and elephants to be stabbed and whipped unless they perform for us. Maybe we buy little puppies from the breeders because they are so cute, ignoring how we just paid for their mother to be raped and have her baby stolen from her. While a dog you could have adopted died without experiencing any love in their life. And obviously we buy meat, cheese, and eggs, ignoring the Holocaust of tormented animal children. We objectify and violate the bodily autonomy of our fellow sentient earthlings every single day. So what do? Do we play the comfortable game and come up with some bullshit excuse to justify our behavior and stay compliant to norms, to tradition, to social pressure? Or do we take responsibility for our actions, change and be on the right side of history? Now, in case some of you are thinking of playing the excuse game, let me address some of the most common ones. Perhaps I also made these before I was vegan. A lot of people tell me that since humans have evolved further and that we are now civilized, and we're so intelligent, we have the right to exploit others who are not. Let me give you a common example of human intelligence and civilized behavior. Has anyone here ever eaten a sausage? Most of us have. And I used to eat a lot of meat, by the way. I wasn't born a vegan, like I said. I especially loved traditional Hungarian food, which I still love. I just eat plant-based versions of it, which we will go into later. But about that sausage, so in the best case scenario, in the most humane, organic, grass-fed, family farm, ethically sourced scenario, a few humans electrically stun a pig screaming for their life. Then they cut the animal's throat, they collect their blood, they take out their intestines, they grind up their body parts, then fill their own intestines with their own ground up body parts, and then they eat it. Intelligent and civilized, right? And you say you couldn't be vegan because veganism is extreme. Eating bread, beans, blueberries, lentils, carrots, potatoes, nuts, seeds, hummus, vegan pizza, vegan burgers, pasta, extreme. But eating the dead bodies and drinking the breast milk of another animal is obviously normal, right? Now, unlike our ancestors, unlike cavemen, especially because we live in a civilization and we have moral agency, we have the means to choose more compassionate options. The largest bodies of dietitians on the planet confirm that we can live completely healthy lives eating only plants, because a whole foods plant-based diet includes all the necessary nutrients that the human body needs. Our bodies do not need meat, cheese, and eggs, or even plants. The human body needs nutrients. As long as we can get those nutrients, we can be healthy. We can get all of those from a whole foods plant-based diet. Yes, plenty of protein as well, especially to those of you doing sports. You can continue doing sports and physical work as a vegan. Vegans compete in the Olympics. Vegans win medals. Vegans constantly set records. Is anyone in this room a baby cow? You're a clown, not a baby cow. Nobody here is a baby cow. So unless you are a baby cow, you do not need to drink the breast milk of anyone but your own mother, preferably only as a baby. You do not need to eat the wings of little birds who suffered in their own shit. And you most definitely do not need to eat the ground up legs and anus of a pig to be healthy. But, okay, we get all of that. We're not baby cows, but have I gone crazy? How can we feed 8 billion people without animal agriculture? Even right now, every 2 seconds, a human being dies of starvation, and about 200,000 acres of rainforests are destroyed every single minute. So how can we live without exploiting animals? Well, right now humans forcibly breed into existence 90 billion land animals to exploit for food. I only count land animals and only animals used for food. 90 billion every single year. So curious to me, what do you think those animals eat and where do you think they live? Now, to feed and keep 90 billion exploited beings every single year, about 80% of global farmland has to be used. The unbeatable cause of tropical deforestation is animal agriculture, which is why at this point only 4% of all mammals on this planet are wild animals. The rest are humans, and the animals humans forcibly breed into existence to exploit and murder. The number one group of industries in terms of water use on the planet are, that's right, the bean and lentil industries. No, I'm just kidding, it's the animal agriculture industries. Once again, what a surprise. In fact, according to the most comprehensive meta-analysis ever conducted on food systems, we would only need 1/4 of the currently used farmland to feed the entire human population if we shifted to a plant-based food system. This would mean that much of the rest could be rewilded. And as we know, reforestation is one of the most effective ways of tackling climate change. So no, humans would not starve to death if we began respecting other animals. In fact, we might even give future generations a chance to not suffer through a climate catastrophe. I know a lot of diagrams. I'm sorry, I think this is important, especially if you're Hungarian and you're a Hungarian taxpayer. This is very, very recent data. This is from last year. The animal industries are significantly funded by subsidies, much of which are paid, actually most of which are paid from the national budget, so our taxpayer money. What makes this even more sad is that according to a calculation on the currently available data, this was done by a professor at this university actually, complete coincidence, most of these industries actually do not produce profits without the subsidies. They actually produce significant losses. So basically what's happening is that we're paying a bunch of taxes to the governments, to the governments as well, because this isn't a uniquely Hungarian situation. I just have the Hungarian data here. We pay a bunch of money to the government, so we can then go into the stores and pay, once again, a bunch of money to buy animal products. When sustainable alternatives are readily available, plant-based agriculture is already profitable, even though it gets only a fraction of the subsidies, and it would still be profitable without the subsidies. I'm done with the diagrams for the entire presentation. Another thing that I wanted to address, I'm often accused of being a propagandist, despite me having absolutely no benefit from doing this, earning no money from this, always backing up my claims with relevant scientific research. Most of what I get in return for my work actually is ridicule and death threats. And it's so interesting to me that no one ever questions whether industries which actually profit off of the slavery and mass murder of animals use propaganda. They've been doing it for so long that you don't even notice. The videos you saw before, do you think these places just let you go in and film? And when they are exposed by undercover investigators, even if what they exposed was illegal animal cruelty, what you saw was legal standard practice, but most often, when you go into one of these shitholes, what you see is a lot worse. It's not the company that gets shut down, it is the activist that gets thrown in prison. A bit more about propaganda. So these industries know that we don't like animal abuse, that most of us are on a level of empathy now where we think this is wrong. So they do everything in their power to separate victim from product, to hide their CO2 gas chambers, their hooks, knives, bolt guns, macerators, slaughterhouses, behind images of happy, smiling animals. I did a similar lecture here 2 years ago, and I brought up the example of this company. They claim that their chickens live as if they were in a spa. They have wonderful lives outside in green fields. They do everything in their power to ease your conscience. This campaign hasn't stopped, by the way. They're still using the happy chickens. So this is what an average master good chicken farm looks like. See how happy they are, just like a spa. Sure, you'd love to trade places with them, right? By the way, this is the nicest and cleanest image you will ever see of one of these places. I found it on their own page. And also broilers, which are the meat chickens, the animals you see here. They've been selectively bred to grow up so fast that right now they are slaughtered at 42 days old. And in the last few weeks of their short lives, they can't even stand up because they can't support their own body weight. There's no such thing as ethical slaughter. Look at that. We're back to the problem. Or the problem. Change. Annoying. We all hate it. But in case you feel like my arguments have been convincing and you wish to live in line with your beliefs, I made it as simple and effortless to start living vegan today, to at least not be the oppressors of these beings. So I thought I'd go through some of my suggestions of how you can start respecting other animals. I'll give you a summary and then we can have a discussion about the topic. I will also go into a bit about social media, about campaigning, about how to use media in general to get your message across. Attila asked me to make it a bit more specific to your group. So I'll go through some of my suggestions. Cruelty-free cosmetics. A lot of cosmetics are actually still tested on animals or use animal ingredients. Fairly easy to avoid them. If you see a vegan or cruelty-free logo, you should be fine. I'm not sponsored by anyone, but the Body Shop is almost 100% vegan at this point. Clothing. All clothes have their ingredients on them. We avoid wool, silk, and leather generally. Some people are confused about why vegans don't wear wool products. I was as well. I used to go to the countryside a lot and see sheep in the best case scenario outside in a field. And I always thought that sheep have short tails. That's just how sheep are. They do not have short tails. Their tails are cut off without anesthetic while they are still children. The reason they do this is to avoid infections, which are actually caused by the increased wool production, which is caused by the selective breeding that humans have done to them over the years. So that's basically, which is why they have to be sheared. It's basically as if I created a human with a disease and then I cured that disease and said, hooray, I'm a hero. Well, I'm the reason they had the disease in the first place. And obviously, when an animal is not profitable, what happens to them? They get sent to a sanctuary and they get pets and hugs and kisses all day. No, they get sent to a slaughterhouse and they get murdered as well. Quite simple. For you, it's checking the label. For the animal, it's their entire life. Fabric shoes are also available. Vegan leather is also an option made from plant byproducts. So, fairly easy. Entertainment. Also simple. Don't buy a ticket to the circus, horse race, to the zoo. Go to the movies, see sports events where the people competing are there consensually. They're not whipped, they're not forced into existence to compete to entertain you. Adopt, don't shop. Right? You don't need a dog who can barely breathe just because they have a specific cute face. Trust me, rescues can love you just as much. And the final boss, the monster. Food, what are we going to do? What are we going to eat? Actually, it's also fairly simple, especially in Budapest. Budapest is insanely good for plant-based food. One of the best places I've ever been to. Let's all admit it, with the proper spices, meat tastes good. Okay, cheese tastes good. Eggs are convenient. Does taste justify chopping someone's head off? I don't think so. But luckily we can eat amazing and delicious food as vegans as well. In fact, most foods that you already enjoy do have plant-based alternatives. It might take a few tries until you find the right recipe or the restaurant you love the most. But trust me, surviving through 1 or 2 bad-tasting vegan burgers until you find the right one is nothing compared to what the animals go through, as they do not survive. Also, contrary to popular belief, plant-based diets are not more expensive than the diet you follow now. According to data, they're about 20% cheaper. Beans, rice, lentils are amongst the cheapest foods out there. Can be the base of some of the best vegan burgers you've ever eaten. Quick summary, what is veganism? Can anyone tell me what veganism is? Yes? Yes?
People who don't consume anything that is from animals, like even bee, honey, cows, eggs, cheese, this one.
Close, yeah. It's not just about consumption. It's also, about entertainment, and basically it's a mindset. It's a philosophy where you believe that sentient beings should not be treated as products, as commodities, as objects. So on one side we have our collective guilty conscience, our cognitive dissonance of claiming to be against animal abuse, to respect animals, yet sending them to get brutalized every single day. On the other side, we have what has been stopping social justice progress since the beginning of time: tradition, norms, convenience, and social pressure. Remember when Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Tradition, norms, convenience, and social pressure, this is what we must live by. Always give your seat over to a white person." No, me neither. He never said that. So if all people in this room got up and started kicking a dog, if it was normal to kick dogs, would you join in? Because everyone else is doing it, right? Would you say, "No, that's wrong. I don't want to be a part of that"? Would you leave the room? Or would you say, "That's wrong. I'm not going to be a part of that, and I'm going to stop it"? Would you actually stand up and stop it? It might be uncomfortable at first to go against what everyone else is saying, right? Do you know what's more uncomfortable than that? Being the dog who is kicked. Being the slave who is whipped, the cow whose baby is stolen from her, the pig in the gas chamber, being the actual victim. Your own rights did not fall from the sky, but were fought for by brave people who could not give a shit about what everyone else was saying because they knew right from wrong. They were seen as annoying, radical, insane, even hilarious, but eventually they got their message across and the world changed. I cannot force any of you to do anything, right? All I can do is give you information, which I think I've done now, so the choice is up to you. Will you keep seeing the world in terms of normal and abnormal, or will you start seeing it in terms of moral and immoral? Will you join in to kick the dog? Will you leave the room, or will you actually stand up and stop it? Thank you for listening. And we can talk about social media, campaigning, or whatever questions you have really about the entire topic. Thank you.